It's morning call, 17th of September 2025. Stocks drifted lower overnight. Investors really on the sidelines waiting for the Fed decision, which is coming up, and an absolute blitzkrieg of central bank meetings over the next few days. So Bank of Canada tonight, just before the Fed. Bank of England the following day. We've got Bank of Japan as well. We had RBA yesterday. Michelle Bullock doing a small speech. Nothing really out of that. There's a small fireside chat from another RBA official today, but not really around monetary policy, to be honest. So we did hit a fresh intraday high overall, but it just sort of ended up just drifting off, closing lower. In the US, precious metals were a bit early in the session. They also sort of drifted off as well. It's a little bit odd that they're rallying together at the moment. That's safe haven and the stock market. They usually, most of the time, fairly mutually exclusive, having safe haven demand and and stock market having what is the best 3-year run since the mid 90s, all at the one time. So the Aussie drifted higher yesterday. It was really boosted by the energy stocks and the mining stocks. So yeah, energy rose on New Hope's strong profit and dividend. Uranium producers obviously surged yesterday as well, and we saw CSL slip. They announced a $760 million biotech investment, but it wouldn't have mattered if it was like EPS accredited. Everyone's down on CSL at the moment. So the way analysts seem to work in Australia is that until the CSL share price starts to rally back up, the analysts won't find a catalyst. It's definitely just an absolute case at the moment. Most of the major research houses and investment banks, that price move first, investment thesis later, which is the wrong way around, but it's just the way it is at the moment. But yeah, which is a bit of a shame, because it really does mean that when you've got stocks that have been hit, it takes some form of company-based catalyst for investors to miraculously find value these days. So Japan was back from their break, but look, I'm realistically, not much went on. Let's face it. So I'll just flick to the heat map. Nvidia drifted off, and look, I think that heat's. I mean, the heat from Oracle's really started to come out of the market, albeit it's been extraordinary, and really probably did save the market a week ago, especially the timing of it being just an hour after the payrolls revisions. Nvidia was looking technically very exhausted prior to that, and there wasn't really any too much news out last night on Nvidia. I just think overall, people have made a lot of money in this thing. People are starting to look, obviously Oracle as well. Whilst it proves the data center thesis and the cloud thesis, etc., people might be starting to look past Nvidia and start to deploy that capital elsewhere, because they're very unlikely to get, the 29-30%, which is what Oracle's been up for the last week or so. In Nvidia necessarily, I think it's priced to perfection. So people starting to look a little bit elsewhere. I quite like a few names in the chip space, as well as as everyone knows, I'm a pretty big fan of Tesla, which was yet again up last night. It had a really key ruling on a class action about auto driving and an accident that's very much in their favour. So that I think has underlying more than underlying benefits for that company, because having a look through robotics and automation, by far and away this fully self-driving thing is definitely is definitely the largest addressable market of anything that's going to come up in the next probably decade. So, they settled it was a 2019 Californian crash. I would assume there'd be some form of NDA, etc., with it, but yeah, they've settled it, and it sort of frees them up and gives them precedent for any future cases as well. So, but they haven't. The company hasn't commented on it publicly since the announcement. Or since the ruling was handed down. So, basically it's just central bank, Fed. Retail sales came out a little bit stronger than expected last night, mainly on e-commerce platforms. So we had August retail sales rising 0.6, modest expectations of 0.2. I've got to say the economic numbers at the moment aren't making a huge amount of sense. You've got, no inflation's come through from the tariffs. You've got people apparently losing their jobs, and then you've got consumer spending being relatively strong. So look, I at the moment, I sort of think that we just need to get some clarity from the Fed and some dot plots tonight, and the market can then move forward after that. US-China trade negotiations in Madrid were positive, but Trump always says they're positive. Again, the Chinese haven't said anything, and surprise, they've found a buyer for TikTok. There's some key sticking points, but Trump's already announced the deal. It's probably like the 50 trade deals that he's announced that haven't existed. So, thankfully, markets are just, we have reached white noise phase with Trump. So he would literally have to do something just beyond bonkers to surprise us these days. Or there'd have to be a reaction from the Chinese, who have played it beautifully, really. They've just ignored him like the toddler that he is. So hopes a successful outcome in the trade discussion, strengthen risk appetite amongst investors. But look, I mean, as you said, I think the financial media is probably clutching at straws a little bit. It's one of those days where we should just not try and find interesting things to say and just shorten our bits. So I'll only have you for another couple of minutes. Gold was up slightly. Silver, despite making a fresh sort of 14, 15-year high, ended a little bit lower. Copper drifted as well, as did platinum. Crude was up, which is why the oil sector was up. It was one of the only green spots on that chart yesterday. Uranium gave back a little bit, but obviously for an ETF to be up 9.3%, I mean, rarely do you see an entire sector up 9%. So not surprised is that's cooled down a little bit. The Australian uranium miners, Boss, still made efforts to rally yesterday. Boss and Paladin are two of the top three most shorted stocks in the ASX, around about the 20% mark. So once it runs out of steam, they just get belted back into shape by the shorters. And then Paladin absolutely ruined the move and the momentum for all their shareholders by doing a cap raise, basically when I was doing the pod yesterday, which is why I didn't bring it up. So well done to the management of Paladin. That is just, words elude me on how annoying that is for the holders of Paladin when the stock was just getting some form of momentum to go and do that. And look, if they'd waited 24 hours and let the thing rally, they probably would have got a better price. So, round of applause to the board there. Look, US dollar still weak. I think it's down more than 10% for the year. It's been one of its worst runs. Don't see it changing. There was murmurs of on Bloomberg this morning talking about government shutdowns and the usual circus of there could be a shutdown, which there inevitably never is. They will, they'll move the debt ceiling up, but just when generally with markets, themes tend to come along, and you almost have to have a counter in your head. And the more people start talking about it, and the more gravity it's going to hold in markets. So it was the first. We knew this was coming, but it was the first time it was mentioned on multiple occasions across my morning research and on Bloomberg, and as of course as well. Commentary from the Fed tomorrow is going to be really key with those dot plots as well. I will likely be a little bit later tomorrow, just given I'll try and do a bit of an analysis of the Fed and analysis of the dot plots for you leading into the day. I would assume that there will be a fairly decent movement. Again, I reckon there's a pretty decent chance, given the political pressure, they might go 50 and just sort of get it out of the way, because market's expecting 75. Scott Bessent's basically made that extraordinarily clear to the Fed. I mean, we're halfway through September. What's the difference between doing 50 now and saving 25 till later? And get Trump off your back. But they could be concerned about what message it sends. But who doesn't like a rate cut? Like, it'd be a different story if we were talking rate hikes. But and the unfortunate thing is that central banks, particularly over the last 5 years, and I've been watching central banks since the mid-90s, are being politicized, and the media needs to stop it, and will stop letting it happen, because it's for our own good. So yeah, that really just wraps up today. A short one today. Don't really expect too much. BHP announced that they've axed 750 jobs in Queensland. Expect today for the ASX to be largely risk off. I haven't seen much in the AFR. And yeah, so enjoy your day. Maybe trim some of those positions you're unsure about, just in case for tomorrow. And yeah, we'll speak again tomorrow.